Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Daily Newcastle. My name's Iain Mackay. I'm here with Kevin. How are you doing, Kev?
Very, very good. It's very cold. If anyone's watching on YouTube or anything like that, it's freezing. I've got a huge hoodie on. I've just got in the house, so there's been no heating on. So, yeah, other than being cold, I'm good, Iain.
And I'm with Michael as well. How are you doing, Michael?
Yeah, very good. Unlike Kev, I took one step out the door, saw the winds, and went, yeah, even my frame will blow away. So, firmly staying in the house and nice and cozy.
Yes. What's it called? Storm? Is it Storm Dara?
Dara, yeah.
Storm Dara, which apparently played some part in yesterday's game at Brentford, where Newcastle went down 4-2. And it is our dubious pleasure to, in this first part, review that match. Another disappointing away performance from the Newcastle, doubly disappointing after they had performed at such high level for such a large part of the game against Liverpool at home on Wednesday. I watched it and then listened to it because my hooky connection to watch some American channel conked out after half an hour, and I think I was spared the worst by just having to listen to it on the Newcastle United website. But I know you watched it, Kev. How do you think the game went for us?
Well, I mean, it's not good, is it, when you're losing 4-2? But I think, I don't know, I think it's clear, and I hate making these excuses for the players because I'm definitely one of them fans where it's like, how can you be tired? You're a professional athlete. But Liverpool, I think, emotionally as well as physically took a lot out of them. And we could see that definitely in the second half. The first half, I actually thought we did well. I thought we played really well.
Yeah.
Isak went wrong with goalkeeper. How on earth he's missed? When you pause it, when he's just went wrong with goalkeeper, you think, how do I explain to anybody he missed from there? It was kind of good goalkeeping. Michael made a great point in my group chat, to be fair. The goalkeeper did do very well watching it again, but I still think once you're in that position, you've got to put the ball in the back of the net. But yeah, missed chances again, missed opportunities in that first half, which has been the story of our season, really. That and inconsistency of just not being clinical enough, is kind of becoming almost too familiar. And then the second half, I mean, I'll leave the second half to Michael for the majority because I think he'll put it better than any of us, but it was really bad. The second half, we were nowhere near it. We just weren't on it. I don't know if it was an attitude thing. I don't know if it was physically or emotionally tired, but yeah, very disappointing overall, but all we can do is put it behind us and try and get a win against Leicester, I hope.
Well, I know eyebrows were definitely raised when we saw that team selection, and there was no place in the first team for either Anthony Gordon or Sandro Tonali, who played so well on Wednesday. Now, I trust Eddie to make the right calls, and I think he misses those guys out if he doesn't think they're fit enough to be able to perform at the level that we'd expect them to perform. To be fair, when they came on in the second half, they played like they were exhausted. They played like they were injured. And that is part of the reason why we're so disappointing in the second half. How did you see the second half, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, we've summed it up pretty well. The second half was absolutely atrocious. I completely agree. First half, I thought we were the better team. You could sit there, you could say on another day it's 3-0 Newcastle. Two great goals by Brentford, two mistakes by us. Lewis Hall defending for the first, Barnes, well, let's not talk about that for the second. But
fabulous through ball. Fabulous through ball from Barnes.
Yeah. Oh, it was brilliant. If it's to one of our players in that scenario, we're bigging him up, best winger in world football. But in that scenario, yeah, it's probably actually one of the moments that cost us the game because we pretty much just scored the equaliser. We were coming back into the game, we looked the better team, and then we just completely let them in it. But again, moving on to the second half, we had more of the ball, as we always seem to do in games against lower teams at the minute. But you just couldn't get our front three into action consistently enough. The first half, I think I saw Alexander Isak more than I've seen him any other time this season. Jacob Murphy, I actually thought was really good. The second half, I don't think he had a touch, unfortunately. And then Barnes or Gordon, when he came on, I thought Gordon looked okay. He tried to make runs in behind, but he lost it more than he actually came off when anything came off. So that probably tells you about his fitness. And then as you both said, like we were active quality. We looked worse when our substitutions came onto the pitch. And, we have used less players than any other team this season. So that might be the reason. But then, just to add to that as well, I have seen people coming up with excuses saying, oh, Brentford have got the best home form in the league. We were the best team on paper that they've played. And, looking at it, it's a great record. But they've played teams we'd expect to beat at home 3-4-0, including West Ham in that, by the way. So, but I don't think they'll win.
They only drew with West Ham, to be fair, Michael.
Yeah, that's a one blemish on their record. So we'll take that. But yeah, I don't think they win the next two games, and that record will look like an excuse. And to be honest, second half, I think we play well in that second half. We win the game, but now we're not. And people are talking about, should Eddie Howe still be at the club? I mean, there was a conversation before that, but a lot more people are talking about it, and it's not down to Howe after the weekend. It's down to the players.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, we've got a discussion about Eddie Howe coming up later on in this podcast, Michael. So I'm going to keep your powder dry for that for later.
Yes.
I think my view, certainly on that game, was that Howe's picked the best team he could pick to start. He set them up in a good way. We look good going forward. We equalised from a goal that we've given away. Isak should put us ahead almost straight after. I'm not sure how you go around the goalkeeper and you don't shoot when you're 3 yards out.
Unbelievable.
Absolutely astounding. And then we give another goal away, even more blatantly, but still come back to be level on half an hour. I do think we were by far the better team, whilst we were still had a little bit of puff in the first half. The second half, I think he's let down even more so by the players. That the goal for them to take the lead is it's a straight ball booted up from the halfway line by the goalkeeper, and everybody stands and watches it. Watches it go. Oh, it's going over the centre half. It's going over us, and it's going to bounce there 6 yards out. And I think it's their centre half with toe pokes it past Nick Pope. I mean, that's not a great move. That's not a defence splitting pass. That's the sort of pass that should have Dan Burn or Fabian Schär heading it, hopefully, before it gets anywhere near the ground, but certainly hoofing it away on the volley before it's landed. And that isn't Eddie Howe's fault. That's the overriding impression I came away with watching that game is, how do you blame Eddie for losing that game?
3 errors.
I think he picked the best team. I think he made the substitutions that we would have made at the times that we did. And he's just been let down more than once by the players on the team. Kev.
I think it goes back to what I said. I think the last time the whole Eddie Howe out thing started, and I genuinely believe I've actually been having arguments on YouTube, comments and all sorts recently because I can't stay out of it sometimes. And I like you guys on the pod and our group chat because it's normally quite sensible and balanced. But our squad isn't. We do have. I think the players who get in the other top six in our squad at the moment are Bruno, Isak, Joelinton, who Eddie Howe made, by the way. And I haven't seen enough of Tonali yet. Gordon's maybe on par with Madueke in that Chelsea team. They're quite similar, even in the England kind of call-up. So our squad isn't as strong as what maybe some fans think. And we do still have a lot of dead wood, so to speak, who are getting lots of game time. Don't get me wrong, I love that dead wood, by the way. I've never loved dead wood more than Jacob Murphy and Sean Longstaff and them, but we have to be realistic. And yes, don't get me wrong, we are better than 12th and we should be higher than 12th. I agree. I think on paper, though, our squad's maybe only top 8. And I know people don't like hearing that, but how many players do we have? And I think it showed against Brentford in the second half. Fabian Schär, I love him, but he's got to be putting that away. That big long ball's got to be going. Dan Burn, I love him. But again, then get tighter of a defender who's running behind then if it's going to bounce. Like, anticipate it as a second or sweeper. So, yeah, it's frustrating, but our squad isn't... It's not as good as what people think. I keep saying this, and honestly, we just need a bit of backing, I think.
Well, he's certainly got the nicest tune out of a whole bunch of championship players that he inherited who are still in that team. Do you think that defeat was anything to do with Eddie Howe, Michael?
I mean, I touched on it just before, but I think it was more down to the players in the second half. I mean, unless Eddie Howe has sat in there in that locker room at half time and gone, right, you don't make a tackle. Joe Linton, forget where your limbs are and just dangle them around a little bit. Isaac, stop getting on the ball. Barnes, continue what you're doing in the first half. You were terrible. It's unless he's gone in and done that. What was the point of blaming Eddie Howe for that? Because we probably hadn't changed anything tactically. I didn't see anything massively that Brentford changed, to be honest. They were just a little bit more positive, and they were winning every second ball. Every single time the ball went into a 50-50, you went, well, that's ending up at a Brentford foot. So it's down to the players, that loss, unfortunately. And I'm not saying Eddie Howe hasn't put in some bad managerial performance for Newcastle this season. That's it's a given. Every manager does. Howe's had a bit of a worse season than we'd maybe come to expect, but the players are letting him down just as much as Howe is letting himself down.
I agree with you, Michael. I don't think that was Eddie Howe's responsibility yesterday. I think it was partly fatigue, okay, partly the blustery conditions that Brentford played in at the same time as well, by the way.
And you compare it
But
against
also
Liverpool's performance.
let down by his players. I'm going to
Definitely.
pause there. I'm going to ask Michael to give us the first sponsorship message.
Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we've spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencastr claim out a clear winner with 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn out more about Zencastr.
Excellent stuff. Thank you very much, Michael. Now, part 2. The result yesterday left us in 12th place. And I jokingly pointed out that if Tottenham had lost by 15 goals this afternoon, we would have gone up to 11th. But unfortunately, they just lost by 2. So we're still in 12th place. Now, I know it's early days, but we're more than a third of the way through the season already. Does that mean that Newcastle United's season is over? What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, I don't think it's over just yet. I think we've got a few options that realistically we need to act on in January or December, depending on when we do it. But we're 5 points off fifth, and that's not that far at all. But something needs to change to get us going again. And I said it in the group chat. When something needs to change, more often than not, it's the manager that ends up being sacrificed. But I think we either take a huge gamble and spend in the January window to back Eddie Howe. Apparently, there was 70 million for Mark Guehi. That's there. You've got to spend it, back him, and then if it goes wrong, you can say, "Look, we've done our part. You haven't delivered." We can sell one of the more the big players and rebuild because we need players in. When we're 2013-14 under Pardew, we didn't build on that fantastic team that we had. We became stale, and we nearly got ourselves relegated straight away. You need to bring in new players for competition, and I don't think this is any different. I think a couple of new signings, Newcastle finished fifth. Or maybe you just accept that we're going to have to focus on cup competitions this season. Maybe the league is going to be a little bit out of hand. But let's be honest, if you said to most fans at the start of the season, we're going to finish 10th, but we're going to win a cup, every single one of them would have snapped your hand off. So the season's not over by a long shot. There's still a lot to fight for.
I disagree with that, Michael. I think, yeah, they'd have snapped your hand off if you said we're going to win a cup, but I don't think I would have been happy that squad that we have that's finished in the Champions League places then should have been in the European places, but for Man United somehow beating Man City in the FA Cup final. I'm not going to be happy if they finish 10th. I think we're better
You're not
than
going to
that.
be happy about the league position, but the cup would more than make up for that for a lot of Newcastle fans.
You would forgive the league position for a cup.
Yeah.
Only if I could see them strengthening in that season immediately after it.
Mm.
Anyway, Kev, do you think our season is over?
I don't think it is. I agree with a lot of what Michael said, so I'm going to approach it from a different view. Actually, I think Michael's bang on with We are only, how many games now? 15 games in. The
15.
The Cups are still alive. We're only 5 points off 5th. I'm going to look at it slightly different to that. If you look at the teams above us in the way this Premier League has been, it's been the most unpredictable Premier League at the moment. The only teams who seem to have consistency is Liverpool and Chelsea. It's a weird year this year. So if anything, I mean, I think the way the season's going, you get 3 wins on the bounce, and you're probably moving up to 6th, definitely guaranteed, which is so strange to say when you sat 12th or whatever it is we're sat. But I also think the teams above us, you look at Fulham, Brentford, Bournemouth, Brighton, Forest, naturally you'd think they would fade away. I'm not saying they're definitely going to, because, I mean, Forest look great, by the way, but I can't see, they can't last. All of them teams can't last, surely. So you'd like to think that, yes, a slight upturn in form. I say a slight, hopefully a big upturn in form for us. And then for them to kind of plateau out would be, our season back on straight away. Michael mentioned something very important, I think, about strengthening January, obviously, to give Howe. I think Howe has earned that money, that cash injection in January. And also, Nottingham Forest broke the rules. They got a point deduction and they're sat 5th now. So why don't we just go break the rules? Just go spend. Can I say bugger? Say bugger to the Premier League and just say, look, we don't care. Give us a 5-6 point deduction next season, but we're going to go spend 400 million because you've already got our hands behind our back and you've chopped one of our legs off anyway to stop us from competing with having the richest owners in the world. So go break the rules, go do it. What we're going to do? Give us 6 points, and we're going to finish top 4 or 5 this season if we spend 400 million and win a cup maybe. So that's worth 6 points, isn't it?
I think if you do say bugger, Kev, then all of our American listeners are going to wonder why you've suddenly started talking about the stuff that comes out of your nose. And we do have a lot of American listeners,
We
so
do
with a
love our American
special
listeners. We do love
acknowledgement
them.
to our American
We do
listeners.
We do.
Hello, you all, or hello, y'all. No, I can't do that.
Hey, y'all.
Hey,
I'll not offend any of you.
Hey, y'all.
Michael loves Americans.
Oh my! I love America.
I don't think the season's over either, by the way. I mean, I know we've struggled in 1 or 2 games when we were expected to win. I'm not sure the Brentford game is a game that anybody's expecting to win when they go to Brentford, by the way. It's disappointing because I think we were the better team, certainly for the first half yesterday. Disappointing to lose that. But we've got some good games coming up. Home against Leicester. Surely at 80% of the levels against Liverpool we'll be able to knock Leicester over. And then Ipswich away.
That's a
Yeah,
banana
Ipswich are
skin
doing.
if I've ever
Ipswich
heard
are
one.
probably
at the
doing
moment.
better. Probably doing better than I thought they would do in coming up. But I mean, these are the teams that if you want to finish somewhere above mid-table, you have to start scoring points again. And then, of course, we've got Brentford back at home in the quarter-final of the League Cup. Now, I would say 3 wins in those games puts us up to about, what, 8? Do you reckon something like that? Plus a semi-final to look forward to?
Could be anything between 9th and 5th, that.
Well,
Depends on, it's so inconsistent, like I said, it's just crazy. But I think the players have a lot to answer for, because I get there's only 3 days between, but at a Liverpool game, every single Newcastle fan watched that game with pride again of how they played, how they pressed, how they performed. They were clinical when they needed to be clinical. They were brave. They were pressing top of the league. To do that and then go to that, not even Brentford first half. Like Michael said, we could have been 3-0 up after the first half and no eyebrows would have been raised. But we're not 3-0 up, we're 2-2. You've then got to show that fight again. And my character, I don't know what is going on with the players. And a lot of people have criticised Bruno being captain. However, that interview was lovely to see in terms of how gutted he was. He called them a mess in the second half. He was devastated. He was absolutely... And I really hope that they put it right against Leicester. But it's no good just putting it right like we have done in the past against Arsenal and Chelsea and Nottingham Forest. We need to put it right, and then we need to use that as a stepping stone to keep going. We cannot keep slipping into this, whatever it is, against the so-called non-top 6.
Yeah,
I
that
think it suits
interview.
us.
Sorry, Ian, go.
I was going to say, I think it suits us if we can raise our game through sheer embarrassment to collect points against Leicester and Ipswich and get through this quarter-final. I think it suits us that the next games are Aston Villa, Manchester United and Tottenham. I think.
Yeah.
And they are the sort of teams where, if there is this attitude problem that we think we've detected with some of the senior professionals just raising their game to play against the top six,
Yeah.
those three should all trigger a positive reaction. I'm going to come back to you, Michael, in part 3 because I'm going to ask Kev to give us our second sponsorship message.
This podcast is part of a global sports podcast network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football, and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. Global Sports Podcast Network, every club, every day.
Indeed. And growing fastest of all in good old North America and Canada. So, like I said, we've got a panda
Up your
ticket.
game, England.
We're hoping to get so many pals across there that we get invited to come and watch the World Cup next year.
I was going to say we
Just
should do
putting it out there.
a live show
I'm just
from
putting it out
America.
there. I'm just putting it out there. Michael, I cut you off before that last advert. Is there something you wanted to add on the whether the season is over?
Yeah, I mean, just one thing to sort of add on to the interview part that Bruno made yesterday. It reminded me so much of Jamal Lascelles' interview against Southampton, where we got absolutely battered in the relegation season. And after that, where he basically came out and said we were ridiculously poor, like criticised the players, we ended up going on a pretty decent run. It wasn't enough to save us, but it was a big improvement in form. So hopefully we see a bit of the same after Bruno's criticism of the lads yesterday.
I like this
Well,
version of Michael. This is a positive Michael. Positive
This
pants
is
on
how I
today.
normally am.
well, part 3, which is slightly delayed start, maybe that's going to winkle Michael's negativity back out for us. I don't know, because I thought the last part is a simple question for the two of you. Is Eddie Howe the man to take us forward? Now, my own view is that he is. I think he's performed absolute miracles to get us where we are, to achieve what we've achieved. Even the game against Liverpool was a miracle because he's still playing with half of Steve Bruce's team in his first team squad. I think he's a fabulous coach. He improves every player that he gets hold of. I think he's improved Bruno. I think he's improved Isak. I think he's improved Gordon. I think he's the man to take us forward, and I don't think we should blame him for the ineptitude of some of the performances that his players are putting in at the moment. That's my view. What do you think, Kev?
I think anybody who's listened to one previous episode ever will know my view is going to be hugely in favour of Eddie Howe taking us forward. I think my personal reasons, look, me and Michael slightly disagree on this, but we'll come to Michael in a second. I would never want to speak for Michael either, but I think Eddie Howe, out of his 3 years, has overachieved every year. Every year. He overachieved when he took us from 19th to 11th. He overachieved when he somehow got, like you said, in half of Steve Bruce's squad in a Champions League spot. And took us to a League Cup final, by the way. People forget what a wonderful time that was, even though we didn't quite get there in the end. And he overachieved in a season when he had something like, on average, 15 available registered players for every game, because the injuries were that bad. He still got us in a European spot. So he's overachieved in every season. This season hasn't started well. I mean, it's still not disastrous. We're not like battling relegation, but yeah, it could be better. But, we win the next 2 games, or we win the next 3 games, we could be 6th and in a semi-final of a League Cup. So it's still, if that's bad, I love it being bad, because it was really, really bad, wasn't it, under Steve Bruce, let's be honest. Look, he gets the club. I don't want another just Rude Hullet or another manager who comes in to pick up his paycheck and pretends that he gets the fans when he doesn't. Eddie Howe does get the fans. He gets the area. He gets the community. He's done his homework. He plays attacking football. I don't have to go to St James's Park and watch us sit 11 men behind the ball at home to Burnley like previous managers. He is the right man, and don't get me wrong, I am Eddie Howe's biggest fan, right? But he is going to make mistakes. He's still a relatively young manager. I don't mind him making mistakes. He is going to make mistakes, but I feel like he will learn from his mistakes. He'll happily identify when he's made a mistake. He needs backing. He needs fresh faces. He's the only man I would want in charge. I would genuinely fall out of love a little bit with football for about 2 months if we get rid of Eddie Howe anytime soon.
Michael, you've got a slightly different view, I think. Have you not?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that Eddie Howe overperformed, should I say. I definitely didn't underperform in the first 18 months. But yeah, the first full season and his first half season overperformed massively. And I think, we were expecting 17th and maybe 10th at the time. But what I will say is, I think when those expectations were made, he has spent more than any other Newcastle manager in history. And that's point to his detriment, point to where we are now as a club. And I think to say whether or not Eddie Howe is the right man to take us forward, I think the only people that will know that in whole will be the Saudis, because there's a lot that's gone wrong. Let's say, I hate to say it, the Harvey Barnes signing wasn't the signing we needed. You could argue the Sandro Tonali signing wasn't the signing we needed. And there's a lot of other things as well in the background of the club that we don't know about, we don't know the details about. So if Eddie Howe was in charge of signings, and that's the reason we didn't get anyone in the summer, and then he said, "Oh, I want Tonali, I want Barnes," and that's not been Dan Ashworth, who, by the way, just got let go from Man United. Who could have saw that coming 5 months in?
Thanks for that, 10 million Man U.
Yeah, exactly. So if that's more on Ashworth than it was on Howe, and because you've got some media outlets saying Eddie Howe's in control of everything. Apparently, he's in charge of doing the cleaning for the under
Ticket
18s.
prices.
Yeah, he's in charge of ticket prices and everything. So I think it's a difficult one to say because I don't know enough. But my personal opinion is that the way the club is going, if this continues, he won't be the person to take us forward. But with that, I said earlier, take a gamble and back him in January, because what he has done has earned him that time. Any other team in the league probably would have sacked Eddie Howe by now. Spurs are potentially looking at sacking Postecoglou. United have sacked, I was trying to say any other big six team, which we're looking to be, we're aspiring to be. But Newcastle, we're not that kind of club. We haven't got the luxury of our history to do that. So let's back him in January, get some money behind him. Let's say, look, we're going to give you 6 months. Here's your kitty. Spend it how you want. If you reach these expectations, you stay. If not, we'll go mutual ways. Because, it wasn't that long ago that he was touted to be England manager. I mean, that does say more about the talent available for England manager. But he's clearly not that bad. And we just needed something to bring that spark back.
Not that bad.
I
He's
agree.
world class. He's world class.
I agree.
I wouldn't put him in world class just yet.
I'm on record as saying I think he will be an elite manager, and I just hope that he proves that he's an elite manager whilst he's still at Newcastle. I think it's really harsh, by the way, that the fact that the PSR rules have changed and then kicked in, which have resulted in this last summer no money to spend to bring anybody in, really, and having to sell both Elliot Anderson and Yakuba Minte, because there's our right winger solution that was already sorted out 18 months ago. That's really harsh. That if that deficiency or the deficiencies caused by applying the PSR rules is what undermines the performance of the team that gets Eddie Howe to lose his job, surely that is not the preferred outcome or the aim of these PSR rules. They're ludicrous. The sooner they change, the better. But I think we still should have, what with the Adidas deal in for the first time this year, we should have some cash to spend in. If we can get rid of one or two players, Harvey Barnes, for example, I'd love to get that 35 million back.
I tell you what, I called that a while back and nobody believed us. And
no, well,
more
honestly,
people are starting to see it my way now. I do want to just jump into. It's not it is in response to what Michael said. I don't disagree with him by any sense, but I do want to kind of stick up for Howe a little bit. Shock. Kev sticks up for Howe. But he has spent more money than other Newcastle managers, like you said. But it was 14 years of neglect this club had in terms of playing squad, and Deadwood left. So I feel like the money he spent was to just get us competitive in the Premier League. Really, like I say, I think we've got a top 8 squad personally on paper. And he has spent more money, but 14 years of neglect, it takes a lot more than just 300 million or whatever it is he spent. It takes a lot more than just that to make up for 14 years of a squad and a soul being sucked out of a club. And look what he's given us back. He's given us back belief, and he's given us back pride, and we're taking on teams like Liverpool at home and the Man City 3-3. I know it's difficult in a minute, but it was always going to plateau out. These players, just like, I love Jacob Murphy, I love Sean Longstaff, I love Dan Burn, but they're just not that good, and we have to just be patient. Eddie Howe will get it right. He will get it right. Back him in January. Give him the money. If it was down to me, because I'm a typical fan and getting all passionate, I'm not going to swear, I'm not going to do an Iain, but absolutely blow the PSR rules out the water. Forget you, Premier League. See you later. We're going to do what we want, and you come down on us as hard as you want. We'll take you to court. We'll get Man City to back us up, and we'll see where we go from there. But yeah, he has spent money, but 14 years of neglect, it's going to take a lot more than just 300 million. Just stick with Howe. Please, anybody listening, stick with Howe.
And with that, I think we close our review of the Brentford-Newcastle defeat. And what a balanced view we've got here. We've got Happy Clapper, we've got a bedwetter, and I'm sitting in the middle, clapping my hands whilst I'm wetting the bed, depending on what side of the bed I've got out of. Anyway, thank you very much indeed, Kev. Thank you very much indeed, Michael, for that useful discussion. What have we concluded? Eddie Howe needs backing in January, and let's give him the rest of the season to see if he can force us up into a European place. Yay or nay?
Spot on.
Excellent.
Yay.
Thank you very much, boys. We will see you again the next time.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.